ladies and gentlemen, Joanna Lumley. Do you know what I'll miss when I leave this job as much as anything? The sight of you walking toward me. I should really miss that.
Michael, we're going to miss you so much. I can't think. I was sitting with Dickie Attenborough back then, and we said, what are we going to do when Michael's gone? Because there's nobody going to take your place.
Who's going to...
Isn't that true?
Right. Now, listen, this book that you've written the foreword to will start on that show, The Magic Key to Charm. Charm is a very old-fashioned word nowadays.
I know, it is, isn't it? And when they sent me this, they sent me this was a book that was written already in about 1938, and they said, we're going to reissue it. Would you have a look at it and see if you'd like to write a foreword? And I opened it up, and I thought, are they doing this as a kind of joke? Because it seems so old-fashioned, you know, brushing your hair back and tying your curls loosely with a satin ribbon, crossing your ankles as I'm sitting now, and keeping your makeup drawer tight. And I thought, is this really a book? But the more I read it, the more I thought, do you know, this is something that's absolutely enchanting. It's a way that young women were told how to behave in the old days, and I think it might be just coming back for a bit of a revival.
Do you think so?
I do think so.
In what sense? Why?
Well, because I think, I have to say, I adore young ones, and I think we've got some of the prettiest and loveliest girls in the world. But I think sometimes behaviour gets a bit bad, and the bad thing about it is that the girls let themselves down because they're so pretty and so lovely that they should behave better. Then they will just be more successful, I think.
Is this I mean, did you always think this, or is this a product of what you were taught at modelling school?
Well, of course, I went to Lucy Clayton's.
You did?
I went on as a modelling course, and I was only there for a month, because courses were only a month in those days. But while we were doing the modelling course downstairs, there was a charm school upstairs. And I think charm meant knowing how to lay a table properly, and how to arrange flowers, and how to say, what a lovely painting. Don't you love the way the light falls on those trees or something? I mean, there were charming things to say. How to, for instance, when you come into a room and meet people for the first time, how to say, not quite like the Queen, have you been here long? But I mean, but sort of, you know, was it easy for you to park your car, and have you enjoyed, I do love the colour of your tie, or something lovely that started people off.
I mean, so you had all this kind of schooling, if you like, on how to behave properly and all that sort of... Tell me about faux pas, though. I mean, when have you let yourself... When is this mask of yours slipped?
There was one very bad time. I don't know what it was, whether it was the extreme cold. For a lovely charity called Farms for City Children, they were opening a farm where city children can go and stay on a working farm and learn what it's like to feed cows and collect eggs and things like this. And Princess Anne was coming down to open this beautiful new farm and sort of school at St David's in Wales, right in the borders. It was jolly cold, and all the children were in gumboots and were all wrapped up like this. And Princess Anne arrived and did the tour with gumboots. It was driving rain, and everybody was very excited she was there, and there was tea afterwards. And I was talking to Princess Anne, who's terribly nice and very approachable, and was wearing a headscarf. One of the children said, will she be wearing a crown? And I said, no, darling, I think probably not. And no, indeed, she wasn't. Well, why should she? But anyway, you do actually secretly hope for a crown now and then. But anyway, there was no crown. But somebody came up with some tea for Princess Anne, which she took, and a big plate of chocolate biscuits. And I was talking too much, as I am now. And I took one of the biscuits and just ate it in front of Princess. She hadn't taken her own biscuit. And I said, oh, I'm so sorry. And I put the biscuit back, bitten. So that wasn't good.
A marvellous withering moment. So you go, oh, my God, yeah. But you were this child of the Raj, weren't you?
I was born...
Yeah, and it's interesting. We had quite a few people who had that similar background growing up in India. And it seems to me that it produces a remarkable child, a remarkable person, much more self-sufficient, resilient, and with a different kind of approach to life than other people. It is discernible.
Is it?
Very much so.
I wonder how much of that is to do with the travelling, which was immense, because you never flew in those days. You always went long boat journeys, and lots of time on your own, so time for mucking about. You also had the great benefit of hearing different languages spoken fluently by people who were of that language, of understanding and hearing the different religions, you know, the muezzin calling, the temple bells, you had a sort of sense of a larger world.
Your dad was a military man, of course, and
Yes, he was.
And he was a major in the Gurkhas. That's
Yes.
right. They were extraordinary soldiers. They
Yes.
were one of the bravest soldiers that there have ever been. And you recently took up the cause of one Gurkha, a very brave man, a VC.
Pun, VC.
Yeah, tell us about him, please. Tell us
Well,
about the story.
this was when my father was a Chindit, which were a specially select group of men, highly trained. They were sort of pre-SAS. It was a system.
Ord Wingate's
Ord Wingate's men. And they were dropped behind the enemy lines in Burma, and it was a very bloody war. And most of them actually still won't talk about it. Most of them are gone now. But a lot of them were Gurkhas, and my father was there with sections of his regiment, and some of the Gurkha men were there too. And there were some of the most ghastly things, but in one particular skirmish, which was at Mogong, which was fighting with the Japanese in these terrible jungle conditions, the 2 VCs were awarded. One was to a man, Michael Ormond, who died, and so it was posthumous. One was to this tremendous Gurkha soldier called Tul Bahadur Pun, and I knew his face and name ever since I was 6 and could see his handsome face in the photograph. Daddy said, "This is a great bloke, Tul Bahadur Pun." Wind the clock forward maybe 50 years, 60 years, and suddenly Tul Bahadur Pun VC, who's still alive and living in Nepal, became very frail, and his condition got weaker and weaker, and he couldn't get the medical treatment that he needed out in Nepal, and wondered whether he could come and be domiciled in this country, live here, and have the health care he needed. And our government, for some unbelievable reason, said he hasn't shown enough commitment to Britain or something. And he'd won a VC fighting alongside and fighting for our army. I mean, I don't know what more you can do, prepared to lay down his life for our country.
Yeah.
And so there was a great deal of banging and crashing and banging, and suddenly they went, "Oh, sorry, what we meant was, no, he can come in." So he did come in. Thank goodness. So
you
Tul
took up
Bahadur
the cause,
Pun
did you?
VC is here. I took up, yes, well, I mean, in a humble way, so did many others. But
yes, but I mean, you yourself, have had your little skirmish not combat, but I mean, recently there was a story when you were in Sheffield, and this guy with a gun. Now, I know you feel sorry for the guy, and he was somehow deranged or whatever. But I mean, they had a gun, and you were facing him, and you showed great sort of resolve and
well,
calm.
I think the thing was that he had a gun indeed, and it fell out of the bag he had onto the floor, and we were in a bar with people around it, not very close, but like this sort of where you sit around, and I thought, this is not very good, because a guy with a gun in a crowded room, and he looked quite sweaty and quite nervous. He didn't look happy. And he had a big drink, one of those, about that big, but it was brown, and I thought, that's whiskey. That's not good either. I mean, whiskey's quite good, but not in that quantity. Anyway, so I went across to him and said, "I couldn't help seeing that your gun fell out of the bag onto the ground. Why have you got a gun?" Because it seemed sensible to engage him in some sort of talk. Because once you start talking, people are much less likely to feel violent or exiled or hostile. So it wasn't brave, it was only sensible. And for me, interesting, because, of course, then I could understand a little bit more about him. And eventually the police came, and it was all done. I did feel sorry for him, because there was something wrong with that. But I do think, I hated it when people said in the old days, "Don't have a go." I do believe have a go.
But you're not fearful then?
No, and I'm not afraid of guns in the way that, of course, guns are frightening things, but because, having been in the New Avengers, we handle real guns. But we handle real guns, and Baptist, which is a great sort of, all the armaments people used to come down and be on the set. And sometimes, once Purdy was climbing across a rooftop and her gun jammed, and she had to pull the entire gun apart and reassemble it on camera with an uncut thing. So I had to learn, I practice, all of it out and all of it back together again, and then hold it. And we used to have to fire, and we used to have to do shoulder rolls with guns. So I knew about guns.
Yes.
And so the sight of a gun is not as frightening if you've handled one or seen one,
Yes. Did you do all your own stunts on the New Avengers?
No, I couldn't ride a motorbike. They gave me a quarter of an hour. They said, "Can you ride a bike?" I said, "No, I can't, not a motorbike." They said, "We'll give you a quarter of an hour to learn." And I went, probably not quite enough. So I didn't do those, but I did quite a lot of strange ones. The one which I know was the most dangerous was hanging underneath a helicopter. They said, oh, you don't have to do this, Joanna, you can sit in the car. We didn't have caravans or trailers. So I went and sat in the back of the car, asleep, drooling in the back. And they tapped up on the window. Oh, yes, and they said, you're on now. And I said, I thought I wasn't doing this. And they said, you are now. And I said, oh, OK. What is it? And they said, the helicopter comes down, it's got this sort of noose hanging underneath it, a little ladder. Now, look, it's just going to hover above you. All you've got to do is step on the ladder. Be careful you don't step right on it, because you pull the helicopter down on you. You don't want that. No, no, I don't want that at all. And they said, so just wait till it's there and just hang on to it. Then just hang on tight. We're just going to take you a little whiz around, a little 2 or 3 mile whiz around. We'll be hedge hopping a bit, so watch out for your feet. And I said, OK. Cameras rolled and I did it and hopped on and went round like this, all the thing, little clinging on. I thought, ooh, this is a bit cold. Whoops, a little bit closer. Got back and all the stuntmen were clapping. And I said, what's the problem? They went, nobody would do that. I'm not even sure.
You know, that in a sense epitomises your life. I mean, you've had a go at life, haven't you, really?
I like it.
You like it, don't you? Yeah. You're still having a go, aren't you, as well?
Yes.
Joanna Lumley, thank you very much. Joanna.